I want to bring in our first Syrian voice. Kamal al-Labwani was, until very recently, a senior figure in the Syrian National Congress. Now, I should say, we invited another senior figure from the SNC to be with us here today. There was a commitment made. That commitment has been broken. The SNC is not represented. Kamal Labwani, you left the SNC a short time ago, critical of it. But I do want you to tell me, as a senior figure in the Syrian opposition, do you think that Bernard-Henri Lévy, the great advocate of military intervention, is right?
First of all, we ask for any kind can knock down this regime, any kind of intervention. But we, after 1 year, despaired about what happened from outside. We depend on ourselves. We need just helping from you to have the tools which we can fight with this kind of regime. We don't need your soldiers, we don't need your aeroplanes, we need little weapons and little support. We can defeat this regime inside Syria, just put the pressure on this regime, mixture between outside the pressure and inside the pressure.
Well, I want to be clear about what you mean, because the SNC just the other day released a statement saying that they would like to see measures to stop Syrian forces bombarding rebel positions from the air. The implication was the SNC now wants to see a no-fly zone. I wonder whether you would support an outside imposed no-fly zone, or what some people call a buffer zone or a no-kill zone.
We can create free zone by our soldiers, by our youngs, which fighting this regime. We think there is a very danger balance inside the area. If anybody intervene inside Syria, maybe we cause a large conflict. That's the problem.
Next to you is Loy al-Muqdad, who represents, is very closely allied to the Free Syrian Army. Of course, fighters on the ground inside Syria. Do you believe most Syrian people now want outside help? We've just heard Mr. Labwani talking about arms, but should it go beyond the supply of weapons?
We want to end this. We are now getting killed since 1.5 years. 18 months, 15 months. Now, we start to ask first about offline zone, we start to ask first about safe area. No one wants to give us anything. Now on the ground, we have a feeling that no one wants to help us. All of them, they left us. All the world, they left us. Even the United States and Europe countries, we have a feeling that no one wants to help us. If they don't want to give us if they don't want to get direct involved, they don't want to make even airstrike or this stuff, just we are asking about offline zone. We are asking for safe area for the soldier, for the FSA just to get there, for the people, for the soldiers' families.
Let me turn now to Ammar Wakaf. You represent the Syrian Social Club, a grouping in London which is regarded as loyal to the Ba'athi Assad regime. When you hear fellow Syrians calling for outside help to topple Bashar al-Assad, what's your response?
Well, the Syrian Social Club really is a group of people who have advocated since the very start of the crisis in Syria a regime reform rather than regime change or regime toppling. We knew that the cost would be high. And with regards to foreign intervention, especially regional intervention, we think of it as being responsible for a lot of the complication that we see at the moment on the Syrian plateau. We think it is very much responsible for a lot of bloodshed that has taken place. But most importantly, and especially regional intervention, it has been responsible for tipping the balance away from the peaceful nature of the revolt, if you want to call it, in Syria, and turn it into a more military one. We've seen in Egypt, for example, about 1,000 people killed by the state over there, and yet no one thought of carrying arms against the state over there. But in Syria, this happened from the very first beginning, really. And we think that because Syria is in such a huge strategically important place, everyone saw an opportunity in it, and they stuck their noses into it way too early.
Bernard-Henri Lévy, I want you to respond immediately to that.
I think that because Syria is in such a strategical position, the world should do something. And also for humanitarian reasons. There is no way. 16,000 dead up to date. They are absolutely lonely. We are speaking of a meeting of the Friends of Syria today in Paris. The only friend of Syria today, the only friend of the Syrian people is the courage of the Syrian fighters. There is no other friends. Mr. Obama is not a friend of the Syrian people. Mr. Hollande today was not a friend of the Syrian people. The only friend of the Syrian people is their poor guns and their great courage. This is the situation. And this is the situation with which we have to deal today.
Yeah, Francois Eisbourg?
Yeah, I would disagree with the contention that because Syria is strategically so important, everybody wants to put their nose into it. It's exactly the opposite. Because Syria is so strategically important, outside powers have been particularly diffident about getting involved, and indeed, and on this score, I would agree with Bernard-Henri Lévy, they have been too diffident. And there are things which can be done short of a UN Security Council resolution, which are allowable under international law, like providing more weapons, like providing actionable intelligence, because Syria is actually a country about which outsiders know a lot. We have more intelligence on what goes on in Syria than we did about what goes on in Libya or what went on in Iraq. There are things that can be done to help the Syrian rebellion which do not imply a UN Security Council sanctioned military intervention, which is not going to happen.
But Francois Eisbourg, is not one of the problems that you talk about things being done to help the Syrian rebels? The fact is there are so many different Syrian opposition groups. They look fragmented, they're often arguing amongst themselves, and I'm going to bring one group, the National Democratic Council of Syria, into this debate. Farouk El-Moussari, you represent them. You are not on the same side as the SNC. You have many quarrels with them. Isn't it a problem that the Syrian opposition is so divided?
No, it's not a bigger problem. It's normal because you cannot ask for the Syrians, a nation, 40 millions. They are one voice. It's normal. In any parliament, in any democracy, you have many voices. For me, I am in the opposition now. This is my 46 years in the opposition. We are not in this year. We are from 66, we are fighting against the dictator of Bashar al-Assad, Hafez al-Assad. Now, we make many conferences, we make many organizations against the regime in Syria. You want the democracy, but what they talk now here about any intervention, it's not really the good solution. We are against any intervention in Syria, military intervention. Now, if we are a real Democrat, we want that many kinds of democracy in Syria. We don't want any other ideas comes from outside of Syria because we are bombing the Syrian. We don't want this. We want a solution. We proposed last year a plain peace to take the transition in Syria with the United Security Council. We asked to Assad leave the power with elections like in every country.
But of course that hasn't happened.